very heartening to see all of you all here. Anand's given us a great idea, and I would like to talk about my experiences and learnings about how we can cooperate to bring about positive change. But before I do that, I would like to really thank Devashish and Sucheta and the Moneylife Foundation for not only holding this talk, but the absolute amazing work that they keep on doing. I never fails to surprise me about the sheer variety of different programs that you do, the energy levels that you have, and which are not only issues connected with Mumbai but the entire country. And that you do it not only through the print, your own magazine, or through the internet, but also taking the immense effort that is required to do it through workshops, meetings, and gatherings like these. So really, thank you again. Thank you again. That is actually the example of this process of working cooperatively to bring about positive change. So on this occasion, the first occasion of occasion of the first Sahakarya Kranti Diwas, I would like to take the opportunity of sharing with you all the learnings that we've had at Karmayog in this 8-year period that we've been around, and about the process of change and the bottlenecks that we all have encountered, as well as what steps can be taken to overcome some of these bottlenecks. I know that all of us here have actually been involved in this process of change. So do pardon me if I speak things which may seem very obvious to many of you all. But just as I was trying to think through our own learnings, I couldn't help but sort of note whatever have been the experiences, and I hope that they are of some value to all of us here. I won't really get into Karmayog. Our brochure is hopefully on every chair. If you all need more, we would be having more around. As we all know, that bringing about change in society, it's both an internal process and an external process. And we have all grown up with, lived and understood the fact what Gandhiji said about the change we want to see. We ourselves have to reflect that change first in ourselves. I want to sort of take that idea forward and just sort of elaborate on it, on the type of different internal changes that are important that I have seen from my own experiences. One's life's journey is about oneself, and therefore it's extremely important that we are aware and constantly evolving as we walk through whatever path we are taking forward in life. Let's take an example of corruption, because there has been fortunately a lot of talk about corruption, and there is pressure on the government, and we want corruption to be eradicated. Now, if we look at ourselves, the first step that each of us needs to do is to decide, and actually decide that we shall become honest. And I don't mean honest only on occasions when we have to pay a bribe, but I mean honest just in our daily activities. So for instance, supposing I'm coming here for the talk today, and I'm late, and then someone phones me and says, "Where are you?" I say, "Well, I'm at Mahim," although I'm at Bandra. So here's a lie, an innocent lie, but as we decide that we shall be honest, we suddenly find, and I found this for myself, the innumerable lies that we are sort of telling daily. We never see them otherwise as lies. And it's very important to start this process of us becoming very consistently honest. It's very difficult to explain how such a small thing can impact not only us, but whatever work each of us are doing in our areas. But the impact is absolutely immense. So I would really urge you all to think of any of these different types of things and walk this path of internal change. If you take the example of cleanliness, the fact is that actually we don't really care about cleanliness. And why do I say that? Because I'll keep my home clean, I'll keep my work area clean, maybe the office clean, but I will not do anything to keep the corridor outside my home or office clean. I will not shell out money, I will actually really not do anything. I will only grumble. So this process cannot occur. If we, as an example, okay, suppose we say I can't do something individually, but there is a scheme called the Saaf Angan. What the Saaf Angan scheme says is that any building can adopt the footpath which is outside their place, whether it's a work office building or a residential building, and then keep it clean. Now, the moment you keep that clean, you also automatically prevent encroachments. You do all those steps happen, but we will not do it because we'll say no, it's the BMC's duty. So the point is, if I truly believe in cleanliness and want cleanliness, I cannot stand the sight of a footpath, a corridor, some common public place that I and my colleagues use daily, and just leave it clean. And while there are many people here, we know Indrani has been working a lot in this area, and we'd like to hear from you also, on these different examples. But I'm just giving examples where we have to really do these smaller things which are in our hands to do. Because otherwise, to expect that the government will do it, it's really in a way deluding ourselves to some extent. I won't say entirely, but to some extent. I also think another aspect is that we need to develop spine in ourselves. And actually this is the gathering where all of you all have a lot of spine. Actually, you all have been working on tough causes. But I just want to sort of elaborate a little. I see for myself that if I have to say uncomfortable things to friends or family, I am very reluctant to do so. So I don't want to I will maintain the status quo, I will not say things. At the same time, I would like that the CAG office should take on, the biggies and the government. We would like that the RBI governor should control inflation irrespective of whatever pressure corporates or even the government is putting on him. We would like that the municipal commissioner should take on the builders lobby and stop whatever wrongdoing is happening. So we are expecting people to do things which are 10,000 times more difficult. For us to appreciate that it is so difficult to do these things, we need to ourselves start doing a lot of these smaller things, because then with that appreciation, our entire approach, how we can go through this process of cooperation of positive change starts happening. And finally, we have to ourselves sort of consciously move from a tamasic, sort of lazy type of approach, which none of us have, to a more rajasic, which is more action oriented. But even to a sattvic, where you can see things in a little detached way, you're still firmly pushing things. Because when we sort of go through that way, it's a different approach, and it just, it takes things more forward as well as taking ourselves forward. So while some of these things may seem very basic, very simple, very inconsequential, but I would urge, because I have found that a lot of times the bottlenecks that I have, are actually not external, but are bottlenecks like this, which are internal within myself. Anyway, let me now come to external processes, because we all of us have been taking on and trying to do things in different ways. We are trying to get cooperation of people. So what are some of the learnings that we've had, and maybe you all can also share the effective learnings that you all have had. We have to write if we see a problem. A lot of times we shall only talk. We don't take the trouble to put our observations, our suggestions, our complaints in writing. It's essential, and we have to urge everyone who we meet that whether or not you expect action to be taken, you must write. It is a very important first step that all of us just need to do in this whole process of change. Because if we don't do the small things, we cannot expect big things to change. It's actually quite a contradiction, and we need to dwell on that all the time. The second aspect is that we should define a problem from the angle of all stakeholders. So a lot of times we encounter a problem and we think of a solution and we want to push that solution. And then we cannot understand why that bottleneck happens and the solutions actually don't get, even the sort of suggestion of the solution doesn't get carried forward to the extent that we would like, if at all. So if you look at any example, let's take an example of the hawker situation. Now if you look at the different stakeholders involved, so of course first thing is we as citizens want pavements and footpaths which are free of any encumbrances, so no hawkers. At the same time, we ourselves as citizens who would like cheap products and services which are conveniently available maybe on our route to work or home. Then hawkers themselves think that they have a right to earn a living in that method. Then there is the BMC, which basically is responsible for keeping our payments in order and also for giving licenses to hawkers, etc. Then societies want to see the locality and areas clean. And also the police itself, whose job it is to enforce. Now, when we all know that these are the various conflicting type of sort of responses of stakeholders or impact on stakeholders and what they are capable, if we are going to give a solution, and we could include even the authorities, are going to give a solution which is not going to address the other concerns, legitimate or not legitimate, which stakeholders are going to be impacted by, then most likely we are not going to see a solution. In any case, it will be a solution which can be implemented only by constant, forcible compliance, and which we all know government just does not have the manpower to do so. So I think it's very important that we really look at what can be the thinking of each stakeholder and how that stakeholder is going to be impacted, whether or not we agree with that stakeholder's perspective. Because just realizing that here's a problem, what I am suggesting is a solution which is absolutely correct legally, morally, ethically, etc. And whoever else is objecting to that is basically doing it because of vested interest. But the fact remains, you have to be aware of that vested interest. You have to either put things out, like suppose you have a website or a blog in the form of FAQs, where that the person is going to be talking about some objection which is actually not correct, but we all need to address it. So I really want to stress on this, because my experience has been that we don't often spend the time to try to think of the objections that other stakeholders can have and take effort to address that. I also want to sort of talk a little about this issue of cause and symptoms. A lot of times we try to tackle the problem itself, which ends up that we are tackling a symptom. We are not really looking at the root cause. So let's take an example, for instance, of stray dogs. So we may think that a stray dog solution could be that we round up all the stray dogs and keep them elsewhere, or lock them up, or even kill them. But these are not going to be solutions to this problem. We may think if you sterilize the stray dogs, then that would eventually lead to reduction in population of the dogs. While that itself is a great first step, but that is not again, directly the solution, because the problem is caused because of garbage lying around the city. So that's the cause. The stray dogs are a symptom of that issue. So unless we will tackle the problem of garbage lying around, which attracts stray dogs, if we just think that okay, today's steady state we've removed all the dogs from the city, it will end up being in wishful thinking, just sort of wishful thinking. And I think that we all need to really have more and more dialogue with people who are interested or not that convinced about our ideas, to try to get a deeper insight about what actually can be the root cause rather than the symptoms, which often is just the problem. Because if you're tackling the symptoms, sometimes you're worsening the problem. But coming now to a point where we say, okay, we've looked at all this, we've now come across solutions which are implementable, which are practical in our opinion, and now how do we go about this? So one approach would be where we are directly tackling the government authorities who are in charge of taking action on such sort of problems. That's a very difficult thing to do, but we all actually have in the past and still try, because we do believe that where there is a will, there is a way, and therefore if there is enough pressure, it will be done. And there have been very notable successes also in things that have been done that way. But I don't want to dwell on that approach today, because here we are talking about how do we all cooperate for positive change. And that is a difficult, even sort of pressurizing the government is a very difficult process. We have all tried it and we know the sort of issues connected with that. So now, how do we overcome the resistance of government? And there could be two reasons for this resistance. One reason is that the officers in charge have some vested interest. Most of us, in many of the cases, end up firmly believing that. But how to tackle that is, I think, a topic, is a different type of topic. So I don't want to get into that direction. So what I want to talk about is how do we convince officers who don't have this vested interest, but they still may not believe in what you are suggesting. How do we bring them onto our side of the table and start taking action the way we think can and should be taken? And I think that what we should all try to do, and actually Moneylife has been really doing that, and I'm always so delighted when I see that, is that we should bring people like ourselves who are working on the cause, who have some solution, as well as the government officials who are directly connected with that, bring them to the same platform and a public platform. Because at that point, when we express our views and we see that there are people who are looking at things a little differently, or we see that the government person is, the government official is able to either explain the sort of situation as they see it, or is realizing that what they are saying is not correct and what the audience and the other people are saying is valid, it's bound to have some impact. We should not expect that they'll turn around and say, oh, you are right and I was wrong and tomorrow itself I'm implementing. We know that won't happen, but that's the process. We have to bring these discussions out in the public domain. And in a way somewhat similar to that, just to refine our own thinking, I think one way that I found useful and somewhat effective is that we have a group which is going to be connected with the cause. Say a group of 5 or 6 people, or if possible more. Now typically what happens, I've seen, is that there will be a group of people who know each other from some context, and they all have a very similar background, similar thinking. The solution in their mind is also quite same, and then that's the group that takes things forward. But a more successful and effective way is to form a group of people who have diverse backgrounds. They may not agree with what your solution is, but they are committed to the cause. Then what happens is that as those discussions take place, all the various possible objections that can happen are coming out in your own internal group. And of course it's a huge challenge, because when you're coming into a meeting, you have limited time, you want to end the meeting by saying, okay, let's agree to do all this, let's do it tomorrow. At that point, if your own group member is giving some sort of, making some dissenting comment, it is difficult, and that is a challenge. But that's the challenge that leader, you need a leader of that group who will tackle that challenge. And it's quite possible that whoever had the initial idea, who still has the drive and still wants to take it forward, may not be the most appropriate leader of that group or that cause to be there. So that's something which we all need to introspect. And one way that we can sort of do that is by always remembering that a cause is far bigger than ourselves. So every time we feel that, but it was my idea, but this is the way that I want to do it, and this other way that is being suggested is not as pure, or it's conflicting with my principles, or the means are not actually justifying the ends, we need to still keep in mind that no, we are a group, we're going to tackle this problem together, because the problem is what we are all focused on and the cause is bigger than us. Which also means that we must try our best to periodically engage with everyone who's involved in that cause. Even though they may be organizations, let's say they may be NGOs, who are in a way competitors because they're all fighting for the same resources, maybe of funding, etc. But if we truly want to take up a cause and we would like that our group takes leadership of that cause, it necessarily entails that at least once a year, if not more frequently, we have to bring people together who have an interest and are involved with that cause. Whether we really like them or not, whether we really think that we can, work cooperatively or not, because it's necessary. We all know when we look at other causes, we ourselves get confused because you have, some NGO saying something, some other NGO saying something, and our general feeling would be, but why don't they sit and first come out with some common solution? But when it comes to ourselves and our ideas and our NGOs, we somehow tend to sort of not see it from the perspective of the common citizen who's not aware of what solutions are, what NGOs are, etc. I would also urge that, and we use that process a lot for ourselves, so therefore I would, sharing that with you, we should define milestones. A lot of times we have defined the ultimate objective of what we want to achieve, but all of us here know that that takes incredible energy, is difficult to sustain. You need a lot of things. Our morale goes down, we come across bottlenecks, and then at some point of time there is really a big danger that we shall not be able to reach our ultimate objective. On the other hand, when we have milestones, and the milestones, for instance, could be something like, okay, we would like this implemented across all schools, but our first milestone is one school, our next milestone may be 5 schools. What happens is it gives a feeling of satisfaction. We learn a lot in that entire process, and we actually approach the problem also in a slightly different way automatically. Because it's one thing to approach a problem from a very top-down view, which sometimes tends to be a little difficult to implement, versus approaching a problem where you're saying, okay, here's the problem, these are the main things which we had thought about, but in our learning process we are now seeing that these things also have to be done, and we now have a better, a better process, a better checklist, a better way of tackling with the next school, etc. So it's very, very energizing if we have milestones. However, we may think that those milestones are too initial, but it's like the base camp of the Everest. So you have these camps, and you don't say that the only thing that we need to do is to reach the peak. All of us have hit a plateau at the work that we have been doing, and we know that we are in this. We know that we are in this for the long haul. we have to be in this for the long haul, because we know that situations are extremely complex. Our democracy itself is such a complex one and complicated one. So these type of different things, what I am suggesting, both external and internal, I have found for myself often to be something which enables me to cross that plateau stage. Because at each point, as we progress, there will be some, what we say, atkav, and we may not be able to easily identify that atkav, that bottleneck which is there. But if we think on these different things and we realize, okay, I'm stuck here, but I'm going to do this, then suddenly you move forward there and you realize that what was the bottleneck here. I do want to urge that we must support each other. I think that seems so obvious, and obviously we are all supporting each other, and today is a great example how we are actually gathered here to support Bharat Ratna for Dr. Kurian. We are here supporting Moneylife Foundation, we are here supporting Anand's idea of Sahakarya Kranti Diwas. So this is a very strong message of support. There are many other ways in which we can support if we cannot really find the time. I think one way which I would like to see a lot more happening is people simply writing a check to whichever NGO they find has taken up a cause which is close to their heart. It can be just 1,000 rupees, it can be 100 rupees for that matter. But just that, it's the money, it's the morale boosting that gives, and also the hard fact that there needs to be a lot of encouragement to, including financial, to sort of take things forward. Other things would be that we should sign campaigns, we should email our friends, etc. We must show our support in whatever which way we can. We must write to the newspapers, because everyone responds to volumes of emails, letters, outpouring of our views, etc. So it's very important that we should support activities which we believe in and would like to support. We should actually show that support in some way or the other. I want to give a suggestion in closing. We've seen, and all of us have seen that, and so in 8 years of Karma Yoga, we realized that paper moves government, and we should never forget that. A troublesome email can be deleted, but paper has to be usually answered. And so what we should decide is not only for government, but we should really resolve that we shall send one letter every week for the next 52 weeks. And that letter can be not only to BMC, maybe it can be to the traffic police, maybe it can be to newspapers. We need to voice. For instance, suppose it's irritating that the newspapers have a full page ad instead of news on the first page. But we may say all that, but we are not writing to them. We have to express. We must write to companies who are giving advertising, especially in consumer goods, which are probably fraudulent. We must write to our own cooperative housing society if there is things that we would like to see change. But it's important that we write. And I would urge all of you all that whatever you write, please send us a copy, and we shall circulate that through our Karma Yoga Yahoo group, which goes out to 64,000 people every day. And we have seen that somewhere, someone or the other, whether it's a reporter, whether it's other people working on that cause, whether it's other individuals who have been agitated about it, they come forward, they take that idea forward, and they push it forward, and it does give results. So I think these are the different ways in which we can all work together in this process of cooperative working for change. And I think that today is the day when, as we hear everyone's experiences, we shall see this inflection point in being able to take things forward. Thank you.